We continue now at the top of Daf Vav Amud Beis in Meseches Bava Basra. This is Bava Basra Daf 26b. On the previous summit, the Gemara was discussing Rav Papa and Rav Huna Breder of Yoshua, who were neighbors. And Rav Papa had a tree, and the roots of the tree went into Rav Huna Breder of Yoshua's property. And Rav Huna Breder of Yoshua, he was digging a pit or a ditch, something along those lines, and he dug up the roots of the tree. And Rav Papa said, "How can you dig up the roots of my tree?" Rav Huna Breder of Yoshua said, "Well, that's a Mishnah. I'm allowed to dig up the roots if I'm going to put a bore over here." And Rav Papa said, "I tried all kinds of arguments against him, and nothing was successful. Ada Amri lay, until I said to him, Hadamar Rav Yehuda, that which Rav Yehuda said, Meitzar shechziko bo rabim, let's say you have a boundary, or let's say you have an area which the public has used for something, asr lekalkalo, you can't ruin it. And the same idea over here, I have a chazaka, these roots have a chazaka to be in this place, and therefore Rav Huna is not allowed to destroy those roots. Lebasar de nafag, after Rav Papa left and made this argument, Amar, so Rav Huna Breder of Yoshua said that I could have responded. Why didn't I respond? Amaylo Amri le, why didn't I say to him, Kan besoch sheish esrei amma? That would be true if the roots were within 16 amos of the tree. But over here, chutz l'sheish esrei amma, I'm digging up roots that are already past 16 amos. There is no chazaka. That argument does not apply. And Rashi explains, Shechziko bo rabim, again you have a strip of land which the public has used for something, la soso lehenderech, let's say they're using it, for example, as a road, as a path, asr lekalkalo, it's asr to ruin that. Afal pishu shel yachid, even though it belongs to an individual. V'anonami ha'achziki lei, I also have a chazaka over here, so he can't ruin these roots. Levasar denafik Rav Papa, after Rav Papa left, Amar Rav Huna amaylo amri lei, Rav Huna said, why didn't I say to him as follows, Besoch sheish esrei amma le'ilon, if it's within 16 amos of the tree, have a chazaka. So that is a chazaka. The Elon, that's a chazaka, meaning it's a chazaka to the tree. Avol chutz l'sheish esrei amma, however, outside of 16 amos, ein chezkasu chazaka, that's not a good chazaka. She'ava bisha sharashav mispashtin chafei amma, even though the roots of a tree can spread out for 25 amos, so you might say it's relevant, it's shayach to the tree, but ein on yonkin, but they don't take any nutrients, ala besoch tezayin. The tree is only taking nutrients from within 16 amos, besoch tezayin amos amach l'ilon, it's only taking nutrients in within 16 amos of the tree, like we say later on, and so Rav Huna was saying, I was cutting outside of 16 amos, so really, I did have a counter argument. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Hayachofer bor shiach umara, if he's digging a cistern or a ditch or a cave, and there are roots coming into his field from the neighbor, so then kotzitz v'yored, he can cut and go down as much as he needs. He can cut as many roots as he needs in order to dig this pit. Va'etzim shalo, and the wood belongs to him. And the Gemara says, Boy minei Yaakov hadaiva me Rav Chisda. Yaakov hadaiva asked Rav Chisda the following question. Rashi says, Hadaiva demin hadayiv, that's the area that he was from. He asked Rav Chisda, Eitzim shalmi, well, what does the Mishnah mean? Who does the wood actually belong to? Does it belong to this neighbor who's digging the pit, or does it belong to the owner of the tree? Amar Lei said back to him, Rav Chisda said back, Tanisua, you learned the answer in a Mishnah. This is a Mishnah in Me'ilah. It says, Sharasha Ilan, let's say you have the roots of a tree. Shal Hedyon, and the tree belongs to a regular person, it's not Hektish. Haboyin b'shal Hektish, but then those roots go into property that belongs to Hektish. The question is whether the roots are considered to be Hektish or are they considered to be Hedyot. And it says, Lo Nanin, you shouldn't get benefit from it. However, V'lo Mo'elin, there's no Me'ilah. If you do use it for personal use, it's not going to be Me'ilah. You don't bring a carbon Me'ilah. And so you see, essentially, those roots are considered to be roots of Hedyot. And so the Gemara brings the proof. And if you say we follow the tree, the roots follow the tree, and that's the reason why there is no Me'ilah. And that would make sense also in our case as well. The owner of the tree would get the roots. He would get that wood. But if you say we go by the land, so this is land of Hektish, so if you misuse that property, you misuse the wood from those roots, so why should there not be Me'ilah? Of course there should be Me'ilah, so it seems as though we follow the owner of the tree. But the Gemara says it's not really a proof. Elamai, but what are you going to say? Basar Ilan Azlinan, you're going to say that we follow the owner of the tree. So Ema Seifa, look at the end of that very same Mishnah. Had the reverse case. Shal Hektish, let's say the tree belonged to Hektish. Haboim v'shal Hedyot, and the roots go into the property of Hedyot. Lo Nanin v'lo Molin, says the exact same thing. You can't get Hana, but if you do get Hana, it's not Me'ilah. But here the tree belongs to Hektish. V'i Basar Ilan Azlinan, if we're saying that we're following the tree, Amai lo Molin, so why is there no Me'ilah? Midi Iria, so is it not, aren't aren't we dealing with begidulin haboin la'achar mikan askinan? Really, this Mishnah over here in Meila has nothing to do with our case, because it's talking about the growth that happens after the tree was made hektish. Because Savar and the Tan of this Mishnah holds, Ein Meila begidulin, there is no Meila when it comes to the growth, and there would be no Meila, whether in the Reisha or the Seifa. As Rashi explains, Midi Irya Maskana Dekushihu, this is really the end of the question. Kalomar, it means Mikula Lavir, you can't learn anything from this Mishnah. Lo Lamashma Mina Basar Ilan, Velo Lamashma Mina Basar Karka, you can't learn that we follow the tree, you can't learn that we follow the land. The time of Mishum, the Hanach Sharashim Gidulim Haboim La'achar Shukta Ilanu. The real reason of the Mishnah is that these roots grew after the tree was made hektish. V'ikol Amandamar Meseches Meila Ein Moelin Begidulin, and there is a Mandamar Meseches Meila, there is no Meila by later growth. Afilu Rashi hektish, even if it would be roots of hektish, besada hektish, in a field of hektish, even if everything would be hektish, but if it grew later on, there would be no meila. You can bring no proof whatsoever from this Mishnah. And the Gemara continues, Ravina says, no, we actually could answer up this Mishnah in a different fashion, and it would tell us, lo kash, it's not difficult, kan besoch sheish esrayam, it actually depends where the roots are. In one case, we're talking within 16 amos of the tree, those belong to the tree. So for example, let's say the tree was hedyot, then those roots would be hedyot. If that tree was hektish, the roots would be hektish. And kan chutz l'sheish esrayam, and here we're talking outside of 16 amos. Outside of 16 amos is not going to be relevant, it's not going to be shaykh to the tree. Rashi says, Ravina Amar Lokash, Ravina says it's not difficult. Reisha de Katani, meaning, in the beginning of the Mishnah in Meila, when it said, Basar Ilan Azlina, that we follow the tree, Hainu Besoch Tazayin Amma, that's within 16 amos of the tree, we say it belongs to the tree, we follow the tree. V'seifa de Katani shall hektish boin Besoch shall hedya. Now in the end of the Mishnah, where it talks about the tree of hektish and the roots are coming into the property of hedya, lo moalin, that there's no Meila. Why is there no Meila? Isn't the tree of hektish? Hainu chutz l'tazayin, that's because we're outside of 16 amos, and so therefore it's not considered to belong to the tree, and so Ravina makes this distinction between within 16 amos and outside of 16 amos. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Amar Ula says, Elon hasamach lemeitzer, if you have a tree that's near a neighbor, besoch sheish esrayam, it's within 16 amos of the neighbor's property, so gazlanu, so then that person is considered to be a gazlan, because the roots, for the 16 amos that the roots extend, they're getting nutrients, essentially getting nutrients from the neighbor's property. That's considered to be stealing. V'yein mevi'in mimenu bikurim, and therefore you don't bring bikurim from such a tree, because it's considered to be stolen. Rashi explains, Gazlan hu sheyonek misad chaveiro, because he's so close to the neighbor, he's getting sustenance from the field of his friend, of his neighbor. Ve'in mevi'in mimenu bikurim, you don't bring bikurim from such a tree. Ein sarech lahavi mimenu bikurim, you don't have to bring bikurim. Why? D'bo'inan asher tavi me'artzach, it has to be from your land. Here it's not getting nutrients from your land, it's getting from the neighbor, and that's why there is no bikurim. And the Gemara continues, Minale la'ulaha. Where does Ula get this idea? Ilema midetnan, if you're going to say it's from the following Mishnah, this is a Mishnah in Meseches Shavias, it says, Eser netios hamifuzaros, if you have 10 young trees that are scattered, besoch beisa, in the property of a field, that's the amount of a beisa, chorshin kol beisa, bishvilan ad Rosh Hashanah, you can plow that entire area because of those trees, because you have to keep those trees healthy. You can do that until Rosh Hashanah. This is talking about Rosh Hashanah of the Shemitah year. Normally, you're not allowed to plow a piece of property going into the Shemitah year, because it's as if you're preparing to work it for the Shemitah year. However, if you have these young trees in this situation, so now you have to keep these trees healthy, so therefore it's going to be okay. Rashi explains, Eser netios mefuzaros bevesa, you have these 10 young trees scattered in a beisa, la'orcho u'larachvo, kulan b'shave, they're according to the length and width, they're all equally scattered, so to speak, throughout the property. Yonkos bikol beisa. The point is, they're getting nutrients from the entire area, from the whole beisa. V'kulam tzarich lahem u'muter lacharsho erev shvius ad Rosh Hashanah. There's need for all of that property, therefore, and you can plow all that property on erev shvius, rather ad Rosh Hashanah, until Rosh Hashanah. Shehalacha l'Moshe miSinai. That's a halacha l'Moshe miSinai. Ubeis sa chamishim amma al chamishim amma. Now, what is a beisa? That's 50 amos by 50 amos. Chatzar hamishkan kare beis asayim, because the chatzar, the mishkan, is called a beis asayim. V'hu meyal chamishim. That's 100 by 50. So therefore, you understand that a beis is going to be half. It's going to be 50 by 50. And so in that area, we're saying the trees are getting sustenance from that entire beis saw. And so the Gemara says, Kama havelahu, how many square amos is a beis saw? Trei alfin v'chamesh mea garmidi. It's going to be 2,500 square amos. And so therefore, you have 10 trees over here. L'chol chad v'chad kama motile. Every tree, how many square square amos is that tree getting? Masan v'chamshin is getting 250. If there are 2,500 square amos for 10 trees, so each one is getting 250 square amos. Halo havid ula, that's not the amount of ula. And Rashi explains, Kama havalu beisa ki avadet luhu ritzua shalam arochev. How much is this beisa? Again, if you're going to have square amos, trei alpayim v'chomesh me'agarmidi, it's going to be 2,500 square amos. Sharayesh kan nun ritzuos shel chamishim ama, you have 50 strips of 50 amos. V'olos la'alpayim v'chomesh me'os ama, and that's going to equal 2,500 amos. Cholokos on la'eser ilonos. If you divide that among the 10 trees, timtzat sirav karka yanikas kol ilan v'ilan bein hakol masan v'chamshin ama orech bi'ama rochev. It's going to come out that each tree is getting 250 square amos, but holo havik ula. That's not going to be like ula. The sheer ula nafish, because the amount of ula is actually more than that. Ula is saying that the roots get nutrients extending out 16 amos. The ilan yonik sheish esrei l'chol tzad. He says that it's 16 amos to every direction. Hare lamed beis al lamed beis. That's going to be 32 amos by 32 amos. And Rashi continues, Asa mehen ritzua achas shel ama rochav. So if you make a strip of 1 amma wide, ka'asher asisumi beisa, just like we did by the beisa, timsena shel elef v'chaf dal rama, comes out to 1,024 amos. Sharayesh kan shloshim ushtayim ritzuos, because you're going to have 32 strips. Kol achas v'achas lamed beis amma. Each one's going to be 32 amos, and so you end up having again a little over 1,000 square amos, and that's going to be much more per tree than the 250 square amos that we see from the Mishnah in Shvius. And so the Gemara continues, V'elami detnan, rather bring a proof from the following Mishnah, also in Meseches Shvius, Shlosha ilonos shel gimel b'nei adam. Let's say you have 3 trees of 3 people, Hareilum mitzdarfin v'chorshin kol, they join together, and again you're going to plow the area. And Rashi explains, V'elami detnan shlosha ilonos gedolim, you have 3 larger trees, Sheyonkim yosem and hanatios, those are going to take more nutrients than the small trees, the young trees, Umefuzarn beveisa la'arko l'rachva b'shav, and again they're scattered in a beisa, Ava b'she'eno shel adam echad, even though they don't belong to the same person, Ela shel shlosha b'nei adam, they belong to 3 individuals, Mitzdarfin lios sedei ilon, they join together, it's called a field that's for trees, V'lachrosh kol beisa b'shvilan erev shvias ad atzeres, you can plow the entire beisa because of them in the erev shvias until atzeres, until shavuos, kedin stei ilon, following the laws of a stei ilon, v'yimlav, and if not, ein chorshin ela kol echad kedei tzarcho, you can only plow each one what it needs, dainu tachta v'chutzalo kemale ora v'salo, just basically right underneath and a little bit around it, v'hashar have a sada halav, and the rest is considered a sada lavan, ve'in chorshin oso el ara pesach, that you can only plow until Pesach. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Chav Zayin Amud Aleph.